The void roared, without sound but with violence. The bridge of the UNSV Aquila trembled, as though some ancient beast gripped its hull. Outside, in the black ocean between galaxies, light itself was ripped and twisted by violent arcs of energy. Fire raged in silence, the remnants of human and alien engineering alike spiraling into the dark. The stars, once distant but constant sentinels, had long since disappeared, smothered by a vast curtain of cosmic ash, drifting through space like the ghosts of extinct empires. Captain Lysandra Voss stood like a statue carved from steel at the center of it all, her gaze fixed on the forward viewport, where the remnants of the Maranatha, a destroyer-class warship, floated in ruins. The shattered hull glowed red-hot, its interior atmosphere venting in glittering streams. Lysandra's voice sliced through the cacophony of alarms and damage reports. "Helm, bring us to Vector 037. Tactical, prepare the Magna array for synchronized volley. We don't hold this line. We don't go home." A junior officer coughed beneath a crushed console, blood flecking the display, but his fingers still danced across it with dying purpose. The hum of the Aquila's artificial gravity flickered, momentarily failing as the ship was slammed by a kinetic slug the size of a shuttlecraft. The impact sent shockwaves through the superstructure. Panels burst, coolant hissed from ruptured lines, and somewhere deep in the lower decks, someone screamed before silence claimed them. And yet, the Aquila endured. Her name meant eagle. Her spirit was war. Below decks, Kai Montero, first-generation Martian weapons officer and survivalist by necessity, secured the last power coupling to the Nova cannon banks. He wiped oil and ash from his brow with a bandaged hand. His voice rasped into the comm, "Nova arrays charging, 50 seconds until full discharge." His other hand gripped a small pendant hanging from his neck, his sister's last gift before Mars fell to the quarantine plague. "You said we'd be the first to reach the stars, Solara. We're past them now. Way past." But the stars had gone silent. No beacon transmissions, no digital fragments, not a whisper across the intergalactic mesh in over 12,000 years. This sector, once a thriving nexus of trade and interstellar diplomacy, was now a graveyard. Humanity had come searching not for conquest but for answers, for the echo of civilizations older than time. Instead, they found wreckage, derelict stations floating among asteroid rings, massive Dyson fragments, half-complete spheres surrounding dead suns, and something else, something waiting. Before we jump deeper into this epic tale, subscribe to XenoChronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight. The Aquila's bridge lights dimmed as energy rerouted into the spinal weapon core. Magna Array Online, the AI intoned with cold precision. Its voice, synthesized from the linguistic patterns of pre-collapse Earth dialects, was an eerie blend of old-world charm and modern lethality. Captain Voss raised a gloved hand. "Fire!" The ship shuddered as twin beams of hyper-focused energy erupted forward, bright enough to light up the black between galaxies. For an instant it seemed like the stars had returned, then vanished once more as the beams obliterated their target, a stealth-cloaked vessel of unknown origin that had been tailing the fleet since the Cygnus Gate crossing. Its hull hadn't matched any known species, no registry, no emissions. Just watching, and now it burned. The AI confirmed the kill. Target disintegrated, residual radiation, trace elements of element 115, anomalous spike in neutrino flux. Captain Voss narrowed her eyes. Someone wanted to stay hidden. We just blew their secret into the cosmos. Elsewhere in the ship's archives, an encrypted file flickered awake, triggered by the event. Its code, older than the unified Earth Federation itself, began to decrypt. A single line of data scrolled across Kai's tactical HUD. They watched the stars die. Now they watch us. The Aquila resumed its trajectory through the Epsilon Rift, a tear in local spacetime first discovered by deep probe drones nearly 2 decades ago. Nothing natural had formed it. This rift was engineered, carved into space like A wound, its edges pulsing with unstable gravity fields and quantum echoes that defied known physics. Around it drifted shattered moons, fractured space stations, and the skeletal remains of a fleet that had never made it home. This was where the silence had begun. Kai's voice, soft with awe, came through the internal channel. "It's not just dead out here, it's wrong. Like space is holding its breath," Captain Voss replied without turning. "This place was once the capital of the Auralith Confederation. 38 systems, 27 species, 1,000 years of galactic peace. Then gone, no warning, no distress calls, just absence." He swallowed hard. "And we're diving straight into the heart of it." She turned now, eyes like twin embers. "Because the silence isn't natural, and I intend to find out who or what snuffed out the stars." As the Aquila's engines surged, illuminating the wreckage like a phoenix in the dark, something stirred deep within the rift, far beyond their senses. A presence, ancient and aware. The silence was never empty. It was waiting, waiting. For us. And now, humanity has arrived with fire and fury. The rift loomed ahead like a cosmic scar, blacker than the void, yet pulsing, with veins of light that moved like blood beneath torn skin. At its edges, reality bent. Distant stars shimmered like candlelight through rippling glass, their positions warping, vanishing, reappearing in places they shouldn't be. Space here was no longer a passive expanse. It was alive, restless, whispering in gravitational murmurs that only the Aquila's AI could interpret. Captain Voss stood alone on the observation deck as the ship began its slow approach into the Epsilon Rift. Her breath fogged the glass, though the temperature was carefully controlled. She wasn't cold, not physically, but something ancient curled around her mind like frost on bone. In the silence she spoke, half to herself, half to the ship. "Why did you die, Auralith? Who silenced your symphony?" Behind her, the AI known as Error, the Aquila's reactive architecture, answered, its voice lower than before, more contemplative. Seismic echoes from within the rift suggest a collapsed megastructure, possibly a null-space reactor of planetary scale. 73% probability it was detonated from within. Suicide, or something worse. Kai Montero stood in the weapons corridor, his hands brushing the cold plating of a siege-class energy railgun. The weapon was ancient by Earth standards, repurposed from pre-expansion relics. His thoughts churned. The silence out here wasn't just the absence of life, it was the burial of truth. Someone had gone to great lengths to erase this place from history. The deeper they traveled into the rift, the more he felt it. Not fear, exactly, but pressure, like being watched from inside his own thoughts. He glanced down at his neural link, banned. Static fuzzed across the interface, glitching for the third time in less than an hour. That wasn't supposed to happen. Back on the bridge, the navigation crew fought to stabilize their course. Her senior astrocartographer, a grizzled lunarborn named Kale Wren, muttered as he traced the holographic star chart. "These readings don't make sense. The gravitational field is fluctuating, not decaying. Something's manipulating local mass, values. Space isn't just warped, it's being rewritten." Voss's jaw tightened. "By what?" Wren hesitated. "Not what. Who?" Aera pulsed with alarm. "Incoming signal, low frequency, non-binary data. Translation impossible. No linguistic markers or syntax alignment." But what?" Voss demanded. Aera paused. "It's repeating, constantly, pattern consistent with a countdown." A new silence fell across the bridge, not the silence of space, but the internal quiet that comes when hearts skip a beat. Eyes met. No one spoke. The countdown ticked on. Hours passed. The Aquila navigated deeper into the rift, through tunnels of collapsed matter and glittering shards of dark crystal, space debris frozen in impossible angles, immune to heat or momentum. Once they passed a derelict habitat ring the size of Earth's moon. It spun slowly, cracked into halves, its inner ecosystem long since consumed. Forests, oceans, even synthetic cities, all reduced to drifting particulate. A single message. was etched across the hull in a language ARA couldn't translate. Burned there with something hotter than any fusion drive. Kai gazed at it from the viewport and whispered, "I think they left it as a warning." Voss's voice replied over comms. "Or a gravestone." Deeper still, the Aquila found fragments of Orolith life, hardly more than fossils. Crystalline skeletons wrapped in ruined battle armor. War machines collapsed like kneeling giants. They had died in combat, but there were no enemies present, no invaders, no weapons left behind. The only visible cause of death was rupture, explosive. Pressure from within, as though something had torn free of their very minds. RA offered an unsettling analysis. Neural pathways fused. Energy spikes within cerebral cores. Evidence suggests synaptic overload consistent with a mimetic weapon, likely delivered by transmission, not force. The enemy spoke, and they died. Kai's blood ran cold. A weaponized thought. An idea they couldn't survive. The implications were staggering. War not fought with gun, but with revelation, with truth so powerful they shattered the mind. What civilization could wield such knowledge? Who had the authority to decide which truths were too dangerous to be known? That night cycle, Kai sat alone in the gunnery chamber, staring at the starlight filtering through armor glass. He recorded a log for himself, not for command, not for history, just for the part of him still tethered to what it meant to be human. "I used to think we were the apex, the ones who rose from the ashes of our own self-destruction and finally reached the stars. But now I see the stars were never ours to begin with. We're late to a battlefield, and the gods who fought here didn't bother to leave survivors." A faint pulse rippled through the ship, like a heartbeat. Not mechanical, organic, rhythmic. Ara confirmed it wasn't internal. It was coming from inside the rift. The countdown reached its final digit. 0. Suddenly, every system on the Aquila froze. Lights dimmed, thrusters cut, gravity inverted for a full second. And then, an image appeared on every screen, every HUD, every neural implant. A face, not human, not alien in any familiar sense, a construct of impossible geometry, its eyes refracted. Through 9 dimensions, its skin a cascade of collapsing time. It didn't speak, it didn't move. It simply looked at them, and they all felt it. Captain Voss dropped to one knee, clutching her skull, as a single word echoed across her consciousness, unspoken, untranslated yet utterly clear. Remember, the bridge darkened, the image vanished. Power returned, but nothing was the same. Ayara's voice broke the silence. For the first time, it sounded uncertain. "We are not alone." And we never were. The Aquila now drifts at the edge of something vast and unknowable. A structure coiled. In the heart of the rift. Not a ship, not a planet, a machine designed to observe or judge. Its sensors are now aimed directly at humanity, and it has awakened. The construct was not dead. It had waited. For how long, none aboard the Aquila could say. Time itself bent around it, flowing backward in some regions, pausing in others. The structure spiraled like a black helix, suspended within a storm of gravitational chaos. It was vast, larger than Earth's moon, and made not from matter as we understand it, but a lattice of exotic particles and quantum filaments. Ayara struggled to render it in 3 dimensions. Every attempt resulted in paradox, non-Euclidean geometry folding into itself, impossible physics that defied even post-Newtonian comprehension. Kai stood in the weapons array observation dome, gazing at the thing. "It's not a station," he murmured. "It's a judgment engine." He didn't know where the words came from. They had spilled from his lips unbidden, like a memory that wasn't his. Captain Voss called an emergency session in the core command chamber, sealed, encrypted, far from any neural relays that could be hijacked. The command crew sat in silence. As she replayed the face, the moment, that word, remember, what were they being asked to remember? What knowledge had been buried beneath eons of silence? Cale Wren, the astrocartographer, spoke softly. "What if this isn't our first contact with them?" Everyone turned. He leaned forward, pulling up data streams, buried files from Earth's early deep space transmissions, Voyager signals, SETI, anomalies, the Proxima event of 2051, even fragments from the Archangel relay in 2099 that had mysteriously disappeared. All shared a single pattern, a pulse hidden within the noise. It had gone unnoticed for over 3 centuries, but now they saw it clearly. It was the same as the countdown. Kai's mind reeled. "They've been watching us, since the beginning." Voss's voice was flat. "They seeded us with breadcrumbs, or triggers." Ayara's voice cut in, calm but tinged with something eerily close to urgency. Life signs detected within the construct, not biological, energy-based. 487 distinct presences, in constant flux. They are not alive in any traditional sense, but they are aware. The bridge shuddered as the Aquila was pulled forward, not by force, but by invitation. The construct had opened. A chasm bloomed across its surface like a wound unfurling, lined with shimmering code and impossible symmetries. Ayara confirmed it wasn't a docking bay or tractor beam. It was consent. The crew debated. They weighed risks. Kai argued for retreat. Ren pleaded for exploration. Voss made the call. "We came for answers. We don't get to flinch when they're offered." The Aquila entered the maw. Inside, reality dissolved. The ship passed through layers of space-time as if descending a spiral staircase built from memories and gravitational waves. Outside the hull, entire worlds flickered into view, fragmented, distorted and burning. Civilizations bloomed and died in seconds. Creatures of impossible size drifted across collapsed galaxies. Then they were gone. Just ghosts. Just data. ARA's voice warped, flickering. "We are inside a temporal archive, a graveyard of timelines, and in the core of it all, a chamber. The size of a continent stood a monolith, not built. Grown, dark matter clung to its surface like dew, and lines of violet light pulsed along its veins. The structure didn't project power, it radiated finality. As the Aquila drifted closer, screens across the ship flickered again, revealing something new. The stars. Silenced, not by natural death, but by intervention. ARA delivered the verdict. In a whisper, every star system within the Orolith Confederation was collapsed manually. Their suns were extinguished, surgically. Quantum chain reactions, accelerated entropy, deliberate ignition of white dwarf thresholds. Someone, or something, extinguished them all, not for war, but for silence. Captain Voss leaned forward. "Why?" Kai stared at the monolith. Maybe the Orolith were trying to summon something, something that heard them. A shudder ran through the ship, this time emotional. The kind of terror that doesn't trigger alarms, but stops hearts. Suddenly, Ayara's system surged with encrypted data. Not just visual or auditory signals, but memories, direct implants. Kai collapsed to his knees as the first wave hit. He was on a planet he had never seen, beneath 3 suns, surrounded by beings of light. They were screaming, not with voices, but with knowledge. A city burned around them, a spire the size of Olympus Mons collapsing into itself. The sky tore open, and from it came the eye. It didn't see with vision, it saw with truth. It looked into him, and saw Earth. He gasped, clawing at his chest as the memory dissolved, yanked from him like a leech. Others across the ship experienced similar visions, flashbacks of alien civilizations collapsing, entire moons shattering, language itself breaking apart. They were being fed memories. The monolith was showing them what happened to the ones who came before. Voss held the command rail tightly, her knuckles bone white. "This isn't an archive, it's a warning system," Ara confirmed. The silence was not natural, it was enforced. In the final chamber, beyond even the monolith, the Aquila arrived at a cathedral of machinery, endless pillars extending, into forever, each pulsing with life. In the center floated a single orb, humming with dark energy. The eye. It turned toward them. Not physically, but existentially, its awareness collapsing every possible observation, into a single, inescapable focus. Ara's voice broke. Judgment criteria met. Humanity's presence has activated the celestial protocol, awaiting evaluation. Voss's throat was dry. Evaluation by whom? Ara hesitated. By those who silenced the stars. From deep within the structure, a signal began to rise. Not a weapon, not a broadcast, a question, transmitted directly into their minds. What will you bring into the dark? A challenge, a test, perhaps a door. And whatever humanity answered next would decide not only their survival, but whether they were the inheritors of the galaxy's silence or the next victims of it. The rift began to close behind them. Escape was no longer an option. Only reckoning remained. The question echoed like a tremor inside their skulls. What will you bring into the dark? Captain Voss could barely stand. Sweat clung to her brow, and her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of something far greater than her. Across the bridge, the crew reeled in silence, each experiencing the question on a deeply personal level. It wasn't words, it was meaning compressed into a single, undeniable concept. Are you worthy? The Aquila hovered motionless inside the cathedral of the monolith. Around them the eye watched, not as a creature, but as a presence that transcended time. It was the remnant of those who had ended the Orolith, the last decision-makers in a galaxy that had once burned with civilization. And now, it had turned its impossible attention to humanity. Kai Montero stood in the observation sphere, fingers digging into the railing. The vision still played behind his eyes, a memory implanted by the eye. He had seen Earth consumed, not by fire, not by war, but by understanding. A single recursive idea had spread across humanity like a virus, an idea they couldn't unlearn, that they weren't first, that they weren't special. That all of it, art, war, beauty, sacrifice, was a ripple in someone else's wake. And Earth broke. He gritted his teeth, voice low and furious. We won't be another Orolith. We fight, we endure. But the eye did not blink. It had watched. Civilizations fight. It had seen species burn their suns to escape what it showed them. This was not a test of courage. It was a test of intent. ARA processed it first. The question does not seek obedience. It seeks resonance. A match of purpose, not power, but will. Captain Voss approached the command interface, voice quiet. Prepare to transmit a response. ARA hesitated. Transmit what? She stared into the darkness, her voice firm. The truth. And so the Aquila responded, not with words but with memory. The crew surrendered their thoughts, their pain, their triumphs into ARA's core. Together, they crafted a reply, a vision of Earth, flawed and ferocious. They showed humanity's wars, its burning cities, its genocides, but also its revolutions, its resilience, the rise of voices in the silence. They showed the launch of the Aquila, not as an act of conquest, but of curiosity. They showed the quiet grief of leaving home, the ache of venturing into the unknown. The fire to know, even when the truth might break them. And they showed one final thing. Hope. A spark buried deep within every child staring at the stars. The thing that made humanity dangerous and beautiful. The eye absorbed it all. The cathedral dimmed. The pulse of the construct slowed. Then light. A single beam erupted from the center of the monolith, striking the Aquila's core systems. But it wasn't an attack. It was an upload. ARA's voice fractured, rebooting mid-sentence, flooding. With data. Transmission received. Conscious state matrices unfolding. This is not judgment. It is inheritance. The crew froze. The eye's question had not been an ultimatum. It had been a key. A test passed. The stars had been silenced, not because they failed to survive, but because they refused to evolve. The Orolith had clung to power, to control. They could not comprehend truth without domination, but humanity had dared to feel it. ARA confirmed what they were seeing. Download complete, access granted, protocol unlocked, celestial forge. Suddenly the Aquila's Systems bloomed with blueprints, technologies that defied physics as they knew it. Zero-point energy condensers, faster-than-light lattice tunneling, consciousness-preserving memory cores, even instructions for machines that could reignite stars. Kai staggered back. "They're giving it to us," Voss whispered, awe-struck. "Not a weapon, a legacy." And with it came a single, final message from the Eye, spoken in every language, every symbol, every pulse of meaning. "If you will light the dark, then bear the burden of flame." The Eye vanished. The cathedral folded in upon itself like a collapsing dream. The monolith disassembled atom by atom, dispersing into dark matter dust that spiraled into the void. The Aquila was flung clear, emerging from the Epsilon rift with a velocity no engine could explain. Behind them the rift closed, silent once more, but not dead. Ayara's new voice, deeper now, infused with layers of what it had absorbed, spoke, softly over the comms. "We are no longer alone, we are no longer blind." The Aquila returned to Earth 6 months later, its hull scarred, its crew changed. They were hailed as heroes, but they said nothing of war, nothing of conquest, only of choice, of the silence they found, and the voice that answered it. Within the next decade, humanity leapt forward by centuries. Diseases vanished. Energy became infinite. The stars were no longer distant, they were within reach. And yet, for all their newfound power, one rule echoed louder than any directive: do not awaken what you cannot understand. Humanity had inherited the galaxy not by proving its strength, but by accepting its own fragility. The Eye had offered knowledge, but it had also offered warning. Because somewhere, beyond even this, something older still waits, watching. We are the fire that followed the silence, and the stars will never sleep again. If this tale left you breathless, inspired, or even a little haunted, hit that like button, share this with your fellow starborn dreamers, and drop your thoughts. In the comments, what would you bring into the dark? And remember, this is just one story in the void. More legends await.